While ghost towns are a standard fixture in the West, very few examples of these wholly abandoned cities exist in other regions of the U.S. The reason for this dates back to the gold rush. Arid regions previously considered unsuitable for large-scale settlements suddenly became flourishing towns. They typically spawned when a mining company struck a vein rich in ore and died just as quickly. These towns were economically hinged on just one resource, which is unlikely to occur in a state such as Connecticut, as it possesses numerous natural resources such as lumber, fish, and fertile soil. Despite this, an infamous ghost town known as Dudleytown lies at the heart of Connecticut. The history of this town begins in the 1500s, during the reign of King Henry VIII. The patriarch of his family, Edmund Dudley, served as an English nobleman. It is said that the curse that plagued the Dudley family for centuries to come was evoked when Edmund incurred the king's wrath. Edmund had been accused of treason and was found guilty. After the man was beheaded, his family fled to America, hoping to escape further tragedy. In 1753, outside the town of Cornwall, Gideon Dudley and Thomas Griffiths officially established Dudleytown. Unfortunately, this township would not bear the great legacy the men intended, nor would it provide the solace that the Dudley family so desperately sought. It is rumored that several young members of the Dudley family worsened the curse placed upon them when they sought help via a mystical book. Local townsfolk believed that they had accidentally opened a portal to hell that ensured the Dudley lineage and that all who became involved with the family would be miserable for all eternity. Whether this is fact or fiction is up for debate, but Dudleytown did experience tragedy. It was haunted by suicide, psychosis, murder, and a string of failed businesses. The people who lived there, including the Dudley family, knew something was wrong with the town. One by one, families left the village until it was officially abandoned in the 1800s. This means it was not even inhabited for an entire century and has been empty twice as long. Only a little of Dudleytown is left now. The majority of its buildings have fallen into disrepair as nature reclaims the city. Unlike most ghost towns in the West, which are not open to the public but often offer tours and are publicized, Dudleytown is completely inaccessible through legal means. Private property signs are posted throughout the town, and cops frequently patrol the area to keep an eye out for trespassers. Could this be an attempt of the owners to save people from the curse that has plagued the Dudley family for so long? Or is it merely a safety precaution to ensure thrill-seeking teens don't enter the decaying buildings of Dudleytown? Either way, the majority of locals criticize these security measures, calling them unnecessary, as everyone in Connecticut knows the curse of Dudleytown and would not dare to enter. As if it were an unspoken rule, the majority of locations associated with high levels of paranormal activity usually have urban legends attached to them. For example, in a haunted hotel, one might claim to smell a fragrance that belonged to a previous owner, asserting that they check up on their establishment even in death. In the same vein, at a haunted playground, another might say the swing sways even in the absence of wind due to a child spirit who once frequented the location. There's generally some overarching narrative crafted to explain the mysterious phenomena. However, this rule does not apply to the Guntown Cemetery located in Naugatuck. While it is the burial site of individuals dating back to the 1790s, there's currently not thought to be any one ghost responsible for producing the activity that visitors have reported. Nor has anyone produced a plausible explanation as to why the supernatural energy emanating from this graveyard is so potent. The deceased who rest beneath the soil of Guntown Cemetery have been buried for quite a while. Many tombstones are dedicated to veterans, spanning to include those who served in the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, and the Civil War. These men are still honored in death for their service by the flags placed prominently upon their graves. There are no theories as to why the spirits of Guntown, who passed so long ago, would still desire interaction with the physical plane. But the community of Naugatuck claims that the reason is of no matter to them. They try to avoid the cemetery as the restless spirits haunt their territory thoroughly. Locals who must pass through this area report an overwhelming sense of dread creeping upon them as an unnatural chill seeps into their bones. One could encounter a myriad of alleged spirits at the Guntown Cemetery. Witnesses claim to have experienced strange phenomena, including the presence of peculiar music or childlike laughter with no apparent source. A man in dated clothing leading a horse by the light of his lantern, and a large black dog that quickly vanishes if you look at it. Additionally, some have claimed to have seen a small boy playing towards the back of the cemetery. He's said to look like your average child, save for the fact that if one gets too close, the boy will vanish without a trace. Its activity was prominent enough to attract the attention of the Warrens, a renowned pair of husband-wife paranormal investigators. When the couple visited the Guntown Cemetery, they immediately deemed it as highly haunted. Further examinations proved fruitful as paranormal investigators recorded supernatural evidence in the form of spirit orbs, mists, and numerous EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. While there's no overarching narrative nor explanation as to why this location is so active, it's clear from all of the data collected at the Guntown Cemetery that it will continue to hold the interest of paranormal investigators and spirit enthusiasts for the foreseeable future. To many, it might be uncomfortable to think about how, in the recent past, lobotomies and electric shock therapy were deemed not only ethical, but also considered to be cutting-edge advancements in medical science. Nowadays, society looks back upon those outdated procedures with the same disdain reserved for medieval torture. The anguish these already pained individuals suffered at the hands of licensed physicians meant to heal them is a dark part of history. It's one that most would prefer to think of as in the distant past. But in reality, these injustices occurred less than a century ago. One infamous psychiatric hospital located in Connecticut is rumored to contain the remnants of these wronged souls, still crying out in agony decades later. The infamous Norwich State Hospital first opened its doors in 1904. While most of its buildings have since been demolished, it once possessed 40 separate structures spanning over 70 acres of land. Each of these edifices served an individualized purpose and allowed the hospital to garner national approval as it successfully ran a multitude of specialized wards. For example, there was a ward devoted to the mentally ill, violent, geriatric, adolescent, epileptic, and even one dedicated to treating patients suffering from tuberculosis. While it did receive national acclaim, and the buildings were constructed with both style and function in mind, maintaining such a large property and docket of patients took its toll upon the establishment. During the 1950s, at the hospital's peak, it housed over 3,000 patients. The therapy treatments recommended during this time period were brutal. Lobotomies essentially ensured that a patient would not be able to live independently, and electric shock therapy only produced further trauma. In the end, as practices changed and their building became outdated, the hospital permanently closed its doors in 1996, after almost an entire century of work. A compiled record of how many died within the confines of the Norwich State Hospital does not exist. However, the estimates of what that number could look like are devastatingly high, between seizures suffered from epileptic patients to those who eventually succumbed to tuberculosis. Not all deaths that occurred within the hospital were related to botched treatment procedures or the result of mental illness. Still, so many people spent a significant portion of their lives, or even breathed their very last breath within the Norwich State Hospital. For this reason, it's easy for those who believe in ghosts to understand why this establishment has so many lingering spirits. The stars of ghost hunters visited this location in 2010. While there, they recorded a multitude of inexplicable phenomena. This includes mysteriously moving objects and floating orbs. Other investigators reported that they experienced cold chills and a sensation akin to electromagnetic pulses as they moved through the building. Some paranormal researchers believe this is the result of former patients reaching out from beyond the grave. Unfortunately, the Norwich State Hospital has been demolished. But whether that means the souls stuck behind its walls are free or not is unknown.